Welcome to It's Not Over with Dr. Dan Farrell. I'm Josh. I will be the co-host for these next two episodes at least. Jordan had to take the rest of the week off, but we have Janine with us. And so here is Dr. Farrell to continue Who Assassinated.
Yeah, I'm really getting into this, you know. In fact, I just read on page 502, page 503, the 50 Years Church of Rome, where Lincoln and Chiniquy were talking about Romish and Mormon priests. Said both are destroying our country, the Mormons and the Romanists. But he said of the two, the Jesuits are the worst.
Yeah.
Even worse than the Mormons. Of course, many of our friends do not realize that the Mormons had an ignominious beginning. They had what was called the Danites. Have you ever studied the Danites? They were the hit group that would ambush wagon trains heading, of course, it was probably after Joseph Smith already died, Brigham Young and so on. But they were raping women and killing men and taking all the spoils and then continue their trek to Salt Lake City.
Wow.
Had you ever heard about that?
I had heard a little bit about it, but I didn't know that they were that vicious.
Oh, yeah, man. You know, the only thing men learn from history is men never learn from history. They never study history, you know.
Right.
I guarantee you the average Mormon doesn't know that.
No, right. No.
They don't know that. And if they did...
And they don't care.
No, they don't care.
They don't care.
And I remember one time my dad, he's with the Lord now, we were door knocking in Wilmington, Ohio, and it was on Paris Avenue, I'll never forget. And this Catholic lady came to the door, and boy, she lit into us. And to make the story so short, she said she was condemning the Baptists and saying, you're going to hell, and you need to come back to Rome. And so I told her, I said, well, you're getting pretty angry. I said, there was a time when you would kill Baptists. And she says, and if they'll pass the laws, we'll burn you at the stake again. And this old woman said this. Now, at that time, you know, that was back in the 1980s. She had to be 57, 60 years old. And she said that, man, we'll burn you at the stake again, man.
Wow.
Well, my dad, you know, because I'd been so involved, I was kind of used to that type of spirit. My dad was not. Man, he got so mad. He was ready to duke it out with this lady, you know. How dare you? I said, Dad, it's okay.
Right.
I'll never forget that. The Roman Catholic people, I think you're right. They don't care.
Nah.
Do you think, Jenny? What do you think?
Well, the Roman Catholics I know, I'm not sure they know. But
Right.
if they did know, it's basically their whole modus operandi is do my church thing today and then move on with life. It's more tradition for them, and that really won't affect them that much.
No, they'll go to church on special occasions like Easter and Christmas. Well, if our Catholics, if they're watching this YouTube or listen to us by way, of course, I don't think Roman Catholics listen to sermon audio. I wish they would,
Right.
but I doubt they do. But they may catch us on, you know, the assassination of Abraham Lincoln. Okay, so what do they think of this program? You think they just conclude it's just all bogus, that Dan Farrell's lying, that I just got some bad information? Is that what they think?
I would think their interest would be piqued.
I would hope so. That's really, if I could just provoke them to study a little bit.
Right.
Now, here's the other thing, and I say this on the outset of this program. My goal is not to convince them that the Catholic Church killed Abraham Lincoln. My goal is to get them to question the validity of such a church that would do that.
Now, if some dude had written a book and it was how the Baptists assassinated JFK or something like that, yeah, man, let me...
I'm going to read it.
Yeah, show me. Show me the evidence.
That's right.
Show me. I want to see your documentation. I want to see it.
Yeah.
But
I'm all ears. But see, here's the thing. A church that would perpetrate a conspiracy like that doesn't mind sending millions of people to hell based on a false message of the gospel.
And this sort of stuff, like, we try to say, well, this is sensational. No, this is just one of a track record of things
That's
like this
right.
that Rome
That's
has
exactly
done.
what
And secular historians
That's
have
right.
documented this stuff for centuries.
They assassinated one man. How many millions did they kill?
Right.
It just, this guy happened to be the president of the United States.
Right. So,
But that shows you how powerful they were.
yeah.
They had the president of the United States assassinated. Wow. Okay, let's get busy. I don't want to read all this letter, but Abraham Lincoln, in this letter, the president took his Bible, opened to the 3rd chapter of Deuteronomy, and he compared not himself to the greatness of Moses, but how Moses wanted to go to the promised land. And he told Chiniquy, he goes, I feel like sometimes I'm Moses, that I'm ready to cross over. But just as the Lord heard no murmur from the lips of Moses when he told him that he had to die before crossing the Jordan for the sins of his people, so I hope and pray that he will hear no murmur from me when I fall for my nation's sake.
Wow.
Abraham Lincoln.
He really thought he was going to die.
He thought he was going to die. Now listen to this. Lincoln continues. He said, "Every sentence had come to me as a hymn from heaven, reverberated by the echoes of the mountains of Pisgah and Calvary. I was beside myself, bathed in tears. I tried to say something, but I think this is Chiniquy talking. But I could not utter a word. I knew the hour to leave had come. I asked from the president," yes, this is Chiniquy, "permission to fall on my knees and pray with him that his life might be spared, and he knelt with me. But I prayed more with my tears and sobs than with my words. Then I pressed his hand on my lips and bathed it with my tears, and with a heart filled with unspeakable desolation, I bade him adieu. It was for the last time, for the hour was fast approaching when he was to fall by the hands of Jesuit assassin for his nation's sake."
Wow.
Charles Chiniquy. Now you got to understand. Now this book, has been documented. It's in the Library of Congress. And what's interesting is who is it that debunks this book? The Catholic Church. Mm-hmm. I mean, come on, help me out. Would there be a little motive here?
Right. Now, here's the thing. Let's say this is all made up. It's all fake. It's all stuff like that. Okay, well, then why does the Catholic Church need to come out and repudiate it and say, why do they have to make such a big deal about it?
Yeah, I mean, if it's just all bogus.
If it's all made up,
right,
then it should bear, that testimony out in time.
Here it is. "The judgments of the Lord are true and righteous altogether when the Jesuit assassin John Wilkes Booth murdered him the 14th of April, 1865 at 10 o'clock p.m. Let us hear the eloquent historian Abbott on that sad event." And he goes on, he talks about how Abraham Lincoln was killed. And, of course, I think everybody's read that. But now listen to this. "But who was that assassin? Booth was nothing but the tool of the Jesuits. It was Rome who directed his arm after corrupting his heart and damning his soul. After I had mixed my tears with those of the grand country of my adoption, I fell on my knees and asked my God to grant me to show to the world what I knew to be the truth, that the horrible crime was the work of popery. And after 20 years of constant and most difficult researches, I come fearlessly today before the American people to say and prove that the President Abraham Lincoln was assassinated by the priests and Jesuits of Rome."
Wow.
In the book of the testimonies given in the prosecution of the assassination of Lincoln, published by Ben Pittman, and in 2 volumes of the trial of John Surratt in 1867, we have the legal and irrefutable proof that the plot of the assassins of Lincoln was matured, if not started, in the house of Mary Surratt, number 561 H Street, Washington City, D.C., but who were living in that house and who were visiting that family, the legal answer says the most devout Catholics in the city.
Wow.
So this plot was being made in Mary Surratt's house and John Surratt. Sworn testimonies show more than that. They show that it was the common rendezvous of the priests of Washington. Several priests swear that they were going there sometimes, and when pressed to answer what they meant by sometimes, they were not. This is a trial.
Yeah.
They were not sure if it was once a week or once a month. One of them, less on his guard, swore that he seldom passed before that house without entering. And he said he'd never passed less than once a week. The devoted Roman Catholic, an apostate from Protestantism called L.J. Weichman, who was himself living in that house, swears that Father Wiggett was very often in that house, and Father Lyraman swears that he was living with Mrs. Surratt in that same house. Now, of course, Jeff Davis could be somewhat guilty. I always thought he was a godly man, but knowing that his infallible Pope had called Jeff Davis his dear son and had taken the Southern Confederacy under his protection, was bound to believe that the most holy thing a man could do was to fight for the Southern cause by destroying those who were its enemies. So in other words, if Jeff Davis was culpable, in other words, he was a little bit guilty, I think it was naivete. When I've read his writings, Jeff Davis seemed to be a pious man who regretted the bloodshed and so on. But see, here's the thing about the Catholic Church. They can get you to do what they want you to do.
Right.
Through networking, through sleight of hand, smoke and mirrors.
The South really expected to get help from Europe.
They did. And France, who's a Roman Catholic country.
And it never came.
It never came.
Yeah. I wonder why.
See, the South was right in that they wanted state rights, but they didn't understand that the Catholic Church wanted a split in the country.
They were playing them.
They were playing they were playing them, basically. I got a lot of Southern preacher friends that would just basically, man, they'd have a holy jihad if they watch our program. But I think the Catholic Church was behind this. I really do. Now I'm going to skip some of this, but the pious Miss Surratt, who the very next day after the murder of Lincoln said without being rebuked in the presence of several other witnesses, the death of Abraham Lincoln is no more than the death of any Nigger in the Army.
Wow.
That's what she said. Where did she get that maxim, if not from her church? Had not the church recently proclaimed through her highest legal and civil authority the devoted Roman Catholic Judge Taney? Did you know that? The Dred Scott case decision, remember that 1/3 vote that the blacks get? He's a Catholic. See, I didn't learn this till a few years ago, that the Negroes have no right which the white is bound to respect. By bringing the president on the level with the lowest Nigger, Rome was saying that he had no right even to his life, for this was the maxim of a rebel priest who everywhere had made themselves the echoes of the sentence of their distinguished co-religionist Taney. Judge Taney. Am I saying that right, or is it Taney?
Right.
But anyway, that guy was a stinking Roman Catholic man. Now, see, I resent the public school system. They don't bring these things out. Every one of those co-conspirators and murderers were Roman Catholic. Even the doctor, when John Wilkes Booth jumped off the balcony and broke his leg and went to that doctor's house, he was a Roman Catholic. Man, it was all plotted. Every bit of it. But no. Roman Catholics, that we love them and appreciate the good Roman Catholics. You know what you ought to do? Let me tell you 2 things you ought to do, dear sir, dear lady. Number 1, you ought to be provoked to further study.
Right.
Second, if you find out that what we're talking about has validity and it's true, you need to leave the Roman Catholic Church.
Yes.
And you tell your priest why you're leaving it.
That's right.
And then ask yourself, okay, maybe I'm going to find this book that's forbidden and read it. It's called the Bible. And you'll find out that the Lord Jesus Christ died by way of conspiracy. Isn't that amazing? I mean, who was Judas? He was John Wilkes Booth, in a sense.
Yeah.
Right.
And the state religion conspired and murdered Jesus Christ. But of course, what a blessing, because Christ died for our sins.
Right.
All right, Josh.
Well, thank you for listening. I want to encourage you to check out some of our websites where you can find some of our older programs archived. You can go to sermonaudio.com/itsnotover and find the archive files of all of the It's Not Over radio programs that have been done, some of them with video and some without video, back when we were just audio. And then also, if you go to YouTube and browse by channel, you can search for It's Not Over and find our channel, where I'd ask you to please subscribe. And you can also see we've started building playlists. So if you've got a favorite topic that you want to watch, you can click on that playlist and it will play all of the episodes from that topic, all of the part 1, part 2, part 3 in sequence. And then also there's morningstarnetwork.org if you feel so led as to maybe after prayerful consideration give financially to this program. You can do so by use of the donate button there on that website. Again, that's morningstarnetwork.org. And then finally, I'd like to encourage you to check out AntiochBaptistCollege.net. Our semester started on the 25th of January, and so classes have already started, but we still offer online courses that can be taken at your pace, and it's a great way for you to enhance study in the topics that we'd allow. So again, go to AntiochBaptistCollege.net for more information on online studies. Here's Dr. Farrell to close.
Now, I know what some of you are thinking, and you've got your Catholic know-it-all tuning in. We have been doing a study on who assassinated Abraham Lincoln. And you think that the only book that would lend credence to this is Charles Chiniquy. In my hands, I hold the book of the late Brigadier General Thomas Harris, who said the Roman Catholic Church killed Abraham Lincoln. Don't miss the next program.